Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Di, and today I'm bringing you another diary entry. So this is going to be part 2 of my March Mystery Madness reads, and I am not getting very good selections read for this month. So I'm kind of not finding the enjoyment out of the reads that I was hoping for in this month. Not that any of the reads have been really bad. Like I had mentioned in the previous diary entry, I did go ahead and DNF one, but the other two were fine. And unfortunately, I'm going to tell you that the book that I started for this diary entry ended up just being fine. So the book that I'm coming to talk to you about today is Strange Houses by Uketsu. So this is a story where we have someone who specializes in the occult. So they're very fascinated with it, and their co-worker kind of comes to work one day and brings a floor plan and says, hey, my wife and I are expecting our first child. We're looking into buying our first house, and we checked out this place, but the floor plan is a bit interesting. I thought I'd bring it for you to see, since it seems like it's going to be something that's right down your alley. So our main character, who in the book is just referenced to as author, is looking at this floor plan, and it is not the floor plan that's here on this cover, but it is the floor plan that's on the cover of the manga. And notices something interesting. And so that kind of leads them to looking further into that particular house, and then uncovering a whole bunch of things the further they dig. And so I think that's pretty much all I'm going to say on this. This particular book definitely has floor plans within it. The one that's on the cover here is one of the floor plans. Like I said, there's another floor plan. This is not the floor plan that is the one that brings the fascination at the beginning of the story. But there are pictures of floor plans as you go through the story. I do think that it definitely adds to the story if you see them visually, enough that the audiobook also comes with a PDF for you to see the floor plans. I did listen to the audiobook version of this because I needed an audiobook, and I knew this was one of the books that I wanted to read during the month. And I thought the narration was good. It was interesting. I enjoyed the experience, but the story wasn't as good as I was hoping it was going to be. So the beginning of the story for me is where most of my interest was caught. It was very interesting, very mysterious. Things as they start to get uncovered is very intriguing. But as more and more gets uncovered and you realize the things that are going on, that is where my interest started to wane. And as we got further and further, I started to become less and less interested because of what was going on. And unfortunately, that is why I just, at the end of this book, only found it to be an okay read. Now, I do have the manga, as you can see here. I did read this first volume with our Monochrome Manga Club, which is the manga club that I host in real life. We read this one a few months ago and really enjoyed it. The manga club members all had really interesting things to say. It was very intriguing. And I will say that what I read from this first volume definitely came directly from, or matches, I should say, the beginning of this book. I had heard somewhere that the book came after the manga. I am not sure about that, but there is also a horror film that's based on this story called The Floor Plan. Now, I have a first impressions video up on my channel that talks about my first impressions of this volume. So I'll link it up in the cards and down in the description box below in case you're interested in hearing what I thought after reading this first volume. I have been collecting the rest of the series, and so I did intend on continuing with the manga as I was reading through the book. However, as I started to lose kind of my interest in the story and what was going on, it made me take a pause on continuing to read it in the manga. With that being said, I'm kind of wondering if my enjoyment would be much more if I had read the story in the manga version before trying to read the book. I just feel like this medium might give me more to be invested in than this did. I just don't know. I do intend on reading this, but I think I need a break before I do, just because I'm kind of let down by my feelings on this after I finished it. I did end up not looking through the floor plans as I was listening to the audiobook because I didn't feel like I needed it. I felt like the descriptions were enough for me. I did go back after I had finished and I was pondering my thoughts on what I had just consumed and what had happened in the story, because I really wasn't sure how I felt. But while I was thinking on it, I decided, let me go through the book, let me look at the floor plans and see if it sparks any other interests in me. And I don't feel like, for me, the floor plans, like seeing them with my eyes, was really important for my enjoyment of the story. I do find that there are things that are not fully wrapped up in this story, which is something that I don't enjoy either, is when there are things that are left to the imagination of the reader. I would much prefer for the author to give me their full picture of what they encompassed and their full thought of the story that they're presenting. I don't want to have to think, is this what the author had originally intended for me to kind of land on in regards to these things that are still kind of up in the air. And so, yeah, I do have Strange Pictures, and I just picked up Strange Buildings. And so I'm really interested to see what I think of the other two books that are by this author. Because they don't currently have manga adaptations, I don't have the opportunity to even try to experience a different version before I jump into those, which I'm interested to see if that actually helps my enjoyment a little bit more. But I'm still interested in this author's work. And so, yeah, a little bit let down. I ended up giving this a 3-star, which for me is still a good read. And I will still be continuing to read and collect the manga because I really, really enjoyed that first volume. And I'm kind of hoping that in reading the manga, that it'll bring me the enjoyment that I was looking for, even though I know now what the full story that's presented in the book actually is, where the story goes. I think maybe just having those illustrations will give me a little bit of a, better interest level in what's going on, even knowing where the story ends up. So those are my thoughts on Strange Houses. It was good. It just wasn't amazing. And fully expected for that story to be amazing. So that's pretty much all I have to share with you for this section. We did hit up an arcade after the Monochrome Manga Club meeting. So I'll have some B-roll for you after this section. But speaking of the Monochrome Manga Club meeting, we did have a couple of reads there that I don't usually wrap up in my first impressions video, which I'll link for you here on our 2 first in a series selections, because those first in a series selections were more on the mysterious side. I specifically picked them as March Mystery Madness reads. So if you'd like to hear my thoughts on the Tales of the 100 Monsters Next Door by Yoshiko Watsunuki, and this one is published by 7 Seas, rated older teen, or Gokurakugai Volume 1 by Yuto Sano, that one is published by Viz, rated teen. You can check out my first impressions video, like I said, which is linked up in the cards or down in the description box below. I ended up giving Tales of the 100 Monsters Next Door 3 stars. I ended up giving Gokurakugai 4 stars. And then that leaves us with our series reads. So we're currently reading Land of the Lustrous. Volume 2 was our selection for March. This one is by Haruko Ichikawa. And this one takes place in a world where you have beings that are based on gemstones. And so the beings themselves carry all of the traits that the gemstones that they are of have. So hardness, clarity, color, all things like that. And they are in this world where they're constantly battling these other beings called Lunarians, who basically come and steal what they can, or the beings that they can, and use the materials to create weapons to use against the Lustrous, who are these gemstone-like beings. And so it's a constant battle. They definitely have like favorites, the ones that they go after more often. They don't know why that is. The Lustrous don't understand why certain of them are more appealing than others, but you kind of follow them living in this world, getting these attacks. And this one particular character called Foss, who is a very brittle gemstone, but wants nothing more than to fight with her comrades. Unfortunately, because of the state of her body being so brittle and so easily shatterable, she's prevented from doing just that. And we kind of follow her, trying to figure out what she can do that will be meaningful, and to be of help to her comrades, and then things that end up happening to her along the way. Or I guess I say her because they do look feminine in nature, but really the gemstones are genderless. But in any case, it's a very interesting story. In this particular one, it definitely carries through the story that we had ended with at the beginning of the first volume. This is a very continuous type of story. We had more encounters with the Lunarians and Foss in a situation that they ended up in at the end of volume 1, and how that all plays out, and something interesting that happens to them within this volume. So I'm really interested to continue with this one. It definitely brings up a few like talking points and things to think about. And even though I've watched the anime of this series, I'm still very interested to see like how this story goes in the manga. I watched the anime a really long time ago, and so it's not fresh in my mind. I think it was 5 or 6 years ago by now that I watched the anime, and I remember enjoying it. I do remember some of the things that had happened as we read the volume, but there are other things that happen that I don't quite remember. So it's really interesting to just revisit this world, even though I know kind of the story from watching the anime. There's always something interesting that I read when I pick up the volume. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how the story goes as we read through the manga. So really enjoyed this one, gave it 4 stars. And then I read volume 7 and 8 of Dr. Stone. I'm not sure if I should save my thoughts because I should have also read volume 9. I'm about halfway through volume 9. I will say that Dr. Stone has a lot of science for me. It is basically set in this world where one day an event happens and everybody turns to stone, and then several thousand years later, people start coming out of the stone. And it's not something that happens to everyone. One of the characters that we follow is Senku, who is very much into the sciences. And so he's able to like kind of put his science brain to work and use chemical elements and his knowledge of compounds and things to kind of bring things back from the modern times that they were in before society or the world had turned to stone, and enrich the lives of the people who have been kind of de-stoned in this world where they're basically starting from scratch again. No technology, no like ramen, soda. So we kind of see like the evolution of things, not only with like scientific things like medicine, transportation, like the first kind of thing on wheels, communications, even just like food items like ramen and soda are a couple things that come up in the series, like things that are being brought back in society. There are like parts of this story that I enjoy, and those are the parts where we really get to spend time with the characters and just like experiencing life as it is with whatever they have at the time. But I will say that there are a lot of points in this story where Senku is trying to put together something and the science is just not interesting to me. Like, I don't need to know like how he got this or what he's doing, or watching him do an experiment all the time. There's a lot of it. I do feel like it's probably a little bit more interesting watching that whole thought process in the anime, which I have watched, I think, the whole first season of the anime, if not most of it. And I did enjoy it. I especially enjoy the theme song, the opening music to Dr. Stone in that first season. But I don't know, it's just not hitting for me in the manga. And so when I have to sit down and read it for club, it's taking me a really, really long time. I'm finding myself losing interest in the spaces where they're talking about all of the science and working out things. There are a couple like things where I'm finding interest, but most of my interest lies in spending time with the characters and actually living in the world that they have at the moment. It doesn't lie in the creation of trying to get things that they once had, that kind of thing, the inventing, the chemical reactions, the constructing. Yeah, I'm not interested in that. I'm more interested in the people that we have been meeting along the way and spending time with them. I do find interest in the characters There are definitely some characters that I really enjoy, but the science is what's really bogging this down for me. So, like I said, I haven't finished reading volume 9 yet, but I'm about halfway done. Overall, I would say these 3 volumes are going to be 3 stars for me. 7 and 8 definitely I've already logged as 3 stars. I'm pretty sure volume 9 is going to be 3 stars. And unfortunately, I have a feeling that if it continues this way, this entire series for me is going to be 3 stars, which is okay. Like I've said before, 3 stars is not a bad rating. It's just not amazing. It wasn't an amazing read for me, which is fine. It's just, I guess, if it's sounding a little bit negative, the way I'm talking about these things, it might just be because I've had so many 3-star reads lately that I'm just like at that point where I'm wanting something much more exciting and I'm just not getting it. So hopefully with my next couple of reads, I'll find that. I have already started my next couple of reads. I will say that one is promising and one is not. So I'll let you know as I finish those what my thoughts on them were and what I am actually reading next. But until then, enjoy this B-roll from the arcade that we visited after the Monochrome Manga Club meeting last week. Okay, so I think this is going to be the last wrap up I have for March Mystery Madness. I did finish one book, and I'm going to tell you about another book that I started, but I don't think that I'm going to finish. So let's go ahead and talk about the book that I finished this week, which was The Decagon House Murders by Yukito Ayatsuji. So this is a story that's heavily based on Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. Basically, a university mystery club ends up going to this deserted island where years ago there was a murder, and so they're going there for like some kind of retreat, and then throughout the course of their stay, one by one, they start to be killed. I had this book on my TBR for quite a while. It's just one of those books where I knew it was inspired by And Then There Were None, and it's actually one of the classics that I have actually read and do remember enjoying, though upon looking back, I did only give it 3 stars. I'm not much of a classics reader. I don't enjoy a lot of like books set in history, and I just thought it was a good like mystery. And so when I picked this up, knowing that it was going to be based on that book, I didn't expect it to be so much on point from what I remember. Now, that being said, I did read And Then There Were None many years ago. And so I basically only remember the very basic premise. And that was very prevalent in this book. I didn't really connect with any of the characters. While you're going through the story, you kind of figure out what the motive is for everything that's being done. There is something that kind of happens with the murders that connects just on a surface level to something that happens in the previous book that I finished, which was Strange Houses, but it had nothing to do with Strange Houses. But one of the things that happens in there also happens in here, which I thought was interesting. I just didn't really, I guess, connect with the story. It wasn't something that really grabbed me. I didn't think about it at all. When the killer was revealed, I didn't really care. I was just like, oh. And then I think I'm missing some things because I don't read classics. I don't know a lot about classic authors and, those more famous authors in history. I don't read a lot of works from them, and I don't know a lot about them. So I think some things that are mentioned in here that could have connected just went over my head. And so this just didn't hit for me. It was a perfectly enjoyable and entertaining read, but that's all it was. And so unfortunately, I'm only giving this one 3 stars, the same amount of stars I gave And Then There Were None. I would have liked something a bit more gripping, I think, a bit more exciting. But I just didn't get that from this. And I think that's pretty much been my issue the entire month of March, is that I was hoping for something a bit more enticing, a bit more exciting, just something that really grabbed onto me and didn't let go until the book was done. And I'm just not getting that. And I think that's not just a March Mystery Madness reading thing. I think it's an issue that I've been having in the last few months, unfortunately. And so, yeah. This is the first book in what I believe is called the Bizarre Houses Mystery Series. I think I will continue to the next one. I believe they are not connected. I'm not sure how they are a series. It might just be the investigators. But I don't think the next one is actually based on anything. At least not anything that I have already read or am familiar with. So I think I might have a better chance of enjoying that one because I know basically nothing about it. And so I think that's what I'm going to do. But I'm not going to do that right away. I'm going to put it on the list and let it simmer for a little bit like I usually do with most of my series reads and just move on. But yes, it was enjoyable. It was entertaining for the time, but it just didn't give me that sensation of wanting to hold on to this story after I finished reading it. So unfortunate, but I'm glad that I did finally get to that one because like I said, it has been languishing on my shelf for a while, and now I can say that I finally read it. So after that, I got a library hold that came in that has been on hold for quite a while. And this is a book that, while I didn't anticipate reading it during March Mystery Madness, it definitely fits into March Mystery Madness because it is like a mystery thriller. It's not something that fits to the theme, but I'm still going to count it. And so I decided to go ahead and start listening to it because it was an audiobook. And that is King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby. So this is a book that I heard a bunch of people talking about when I was watching their best books of 2025 videos. I've watched several, and I've kind of made a list of books that sounded interesting to me that I thought I would want to try out during the year. I had originally thought that I might make an entire diary entry about reading those books that I heard about on these lists and such. But if they all end up being how this one is going for me, that video is not going to be interesting or exciting at all. So let me tell you what this one is about. It follows a guy, and he is some kind of financial advisor. And he has some trauma because when he was little, his mom basically went to work one day and never came back. They don't know what happened to her, and it's kind of haunted him into his adult years. He's the oldest, I believe, of 3 siblings. His father owns a crematory service, so that's all they do is cremate bodies. And he gets a phone call from his sister one day saying that their father has been in a terrible car accident and is now in a coma. And so this man decides to go home and try to help his sister keep the family business afloat and, be there with his father and, spend some time with family and so forth. When he gets home, he finds out that his youngest brother, who has kind of had a history of getting in trouble often, has gotten himself in trouble again. And this time it's really big trouble. He is sideways in a deal with a drug lord, and he doesn't know how to get out of it. And so the older brother kind of steps in and tries to help out. And when his negotiations with this drug lord disintegrate, he basically gets beaten to a pulp along with his brother and becomes in servitude to the drug lord. And so we kind of follow this guy trying to figure out how to get him and his brother out of the situation that they are in, while also trying to keep the family business afloat. And there's kind of this lingering question about what happened to his mom. So I'm about 38% into this book, and it is awfully gruesome. I will say that when you had the scene of the brothers getting beaten to a pulp, it was very graphic. And a scene that had happened right before I finished reading for the week, 2 people went into the incinerator, and one of them became conscious while being cremated. And so I do not believe that I am going to be completing this book. It is not something that I am interested in reading right now. It's not to say that it's too gruesome for me. I've definitely read a lot of like serial killer mysteries and things that include torture scenes and things like that. But with the way that my mental health is right now and just the way that I've been feeling in general about my reads, I don't think that this is going to be one that gives more than 3 stars for me by the time I finish. And I am not really up to hearing about people being tortured right now. And so I'm going to DNF this book at 38%. It's unfortunate that I'm going to be ending my March Mystery Madness reading this way. This whole month, the reading has not been excellent. I've managed to finish, a pretty normal amount of books for me, I would say, but the ratings have been mediocre, and I am very disappointed. I'm, always looking for books to entertain me and to, stick with me a little bit. And basically none of the books that I've read this month have given me that feeling. And while I'm glad I read them, because they were all books that I had interest in before, I'm just kind of feeling lackluster about everything. And not to mention the fact that, previously I had said that March is usually a hard month for me. It is continuing to be a hard month for me. The weather itself is not helping my mental lows, I guess you can say. And so, yeah, it's just not been a great month all the way around. So what I am going to say is that I am currently reading a book which is kind of giving me the feeling that I'm going to give it 4 stars. I don't think it's going to slip down into 3. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to finish it before filming this video for you today. I'm not even halfway done. I have noticed that my reading has slowed down quite a bit, and that's not a bad thing, especially with the things that I'm feeling, the way that I'm feeling, and things like that. And so I'm hoping that the next diary entry you see from me will have higher enjoyment of books or manga to talk to you about, because it's kind of disappointing for me to have to come here and tell you I didn't really enjoy anything that I read during the month. I mean, I know I'm not the only one that has months like this, but I feel like everything's just kind of going downhill as far as the things that I'm reading. And I'm kind of starting to wonder if I need to maybe not take recommendations, not pick up books that people are talking about at all. Maybe just go back to trying to find books myself. Like maybe browse a bookstore or the library and see if anything sounds interesting to me that nobody I've heard anyway has talked about. Maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe I'm letting BookTube recommendations get the better of me. I don't know what's going on, but I really, really want to work on trying to find some better reads, or at least not better. I shouldn't say better. Trying to find more enjoyable reads for me, I think, is the more apt phrase here. Because I know people have enjoyed the books that I've read. I've heard somebody recently say that they really enjoyed this book, which was kind of the prompt for me to actually put it on my TBR and make sure that I read it for March Mystery Madness. But unfortunately, you know, that person that I watched also reads a lot of historicals and enjoys historical mystery as one of their genres, and that's just not something that I enjoy anymore. And so, yeah. In any case, we need to not end this video on a low note. So we are going to go ahead and do some advent openings. We are going to open my yarn advent calendar, which is the Charlie Brown Christmas inspired yarn advent calendar by Stitching with Yarn. We're also going to do my Nido advent calendar. And then I'm going to share a couple of things with you that have brought me interest over the last couple of weeks. And I think we'll just wrap it up here. So let's go start with the yarn advent calendar. So I have number 7 here. And this one is called Nobody Sent Me a Christmas Card. So let's see what it looks like. Ooh, that is definitely Christmassy. You got your red and greens, little blue, lots of white, and you've got this like mocha or toffee. It's more of a coffee color in person than it is coming out on screen. Like on screen, it's coming out a lot more like a caramel or a toffee, but ooh, there's even some black. That's black. That's not blue. So on screen it looks blue, at least to me, but it is actually black. Oh wow, that's really pretty. And then in the green here you can see there's some speckles of red. Very nice, very nice. Again, I'm very excited to see all of the mini skeins together once I've opened them all, just to see if there's any like rhyme or reason to the progression of color. But very happy still with this yarn advent calendar. So let's go ahead and do my Nido advent. So we've got number 7. And this one is taking me a while to find. Okay, it's the fish. Number 7 is here. Let's see what we've got. Okay, what does that say? Cluckin' Catapult. So it's another one of those things you can fling onto somebody. So it is an orange rooster. It's coming out more like Tang orange on screen, but it's much more of a deeper kind of neon orange in real life. And basically, you're supposed to like pull the chicken leg and launch it to hit somebody or whatever. So that is funny. Definitely still squishy too. It's much firmer in the body, but the legs are really thin, so they're a lot more flexible because those are your launching legs. And so we're just gonna go ahead and put this one back because that is not a stress ball for me. So that is the Nido advent calendar. I will tell you that I have recently been introduced to a new type of stress kind of, it's not a ball, but it's like a stress kind of thing to like squish. And my mom brought these because they were recommended by a customer at the store. And the customer had told her that this particular variation of this thing is the one that we picked up first. So we ended up picking up some Crazy Aaron's Thinking Putty. It says it's excellent. This particular one, it says it has double fidget fun because it has their putty and then it has a stress ball. So it looks like this inside. So this is a stress ball. You can kind of see it is much
Okay, so what I was saying was that it's much more squishy, kind of like one of the Nido stress balls. This one doesn't quite get its shape back as fast, but it definitely is more of that like stress ball feel. And then you've got the putty. So this is much more of a like tactile experience. You can stretch it, you can squeeze it. It's much firmer. Like as far as any of the stress balls that I have, this is probably like the most firm texture. But I do like how it like kind of cracked like gum when you get like air pockets and stuff inside. And so yeah, I enjoyed this one. This one is much more of a like opalescent, like white type color. It is a traditional like putty kind of thing. It doesn't stick to your hands at all, but what I will say is that you saw me just drop it on the floor, right? I have carpet, and so it did pick up the little like fuzz from the carpet. So I had to go ahead and clean that off before I showed that to you, because I didn't want the particles to be inside the putty. But I have been enjoying this a lot. I still have my Nido at my desk, and I still have the Nido from the Advent here, and I have the water-filled one from the Advent here. We've been trying this other like Specs, it's called Specs. This one is much more like fluid. Also, the outside is very sticky. This one does stick to your hands. Maybe not initially once you start playing with it, but I have found the longer that I play with it, it does start sticking to my hand. And so I don't quite enjoy this one as much as the Nido. But this has been rather enjoyable for me over the last couple of weeks. And so, yeah, I don't particularly care for this part, the yolk. To me, this, every time I squeeze it, especially because it kind of changes color, right? When you squeeze, I feel like it's going to explode. And I know that I'm somebody that really squeezes hard. And so, yeah. So you're supposed to be able to squeeze them together, like put them together and like squish and stretch. I didn't enjoy that experience because again, I feel like I might burst the yolk part. And so I definitely enjoy the putty part more. So my mom said that they had several different iterations of this, and basically to put it away, I just put it back inside and close it so that it doesn't dry out. And so she's bought me some other iterations of this thinking putty. And so we have the Super Scarab, which is kind of a very iridescent kind of color. We have the Glow in the Dark, which is that like real kind of, it has a green shimmer in it that you can't really see on camera, but it has those glow in the dark functions, and you can see that sometimes when it opens, the way that it settles, it gets stuck in the cap, but it's very easy to just remove it by either rolling some on it and it picks up on itself, you know, that type of thing. So that's the glow in the dark. And then we have the Falling Water liquid glass, and this one is definitely more my color. Very, very pretty, and again, it has that shimmer in it. I do not feel a difference like between the texture of the putties, which is nice. The only difference that I feel is the difference between the putty and the yolk thing in this one. But again, this one's not my favorite. So I have been enjoying all three of these. I have this one over here by the computer for filming, and then I've been playing with these two for work. But yes, have been enjoying these a lot. I think they did come out with an advent calendar last year. So if they come out with another one this year, I might definitely go for that. I think the containers are much smaller, but I do kind of feel like there's too much putty in here for my hand. I mean, I could always like break off a part and make it smaller for me to play with, but I don't know. I just feel like it would be nicer to just have a smaller portion. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I've been enjoying kind of fiddling with over the last couple of weeks. And then the other thing that I've been doing has been going down the rabbit hole of like retirement investing. I am not someone who has been very good about that. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can and, you know, put things in place. And so that's all been scary. It's been interesting. And so I'm kind of trying to work on my financial future, which is not fun and exciting, but you know, it's something that has to be done now in order to be fun and exciting later. And so that's kind of the things that I've been up to over the last couple of weeks since I talked to you. I'm really, really hoping that my reads for April are going to be more enjoyable than the reads that I had for March. The Magical Readathon is happening again this year. I don't know if I'm participating. Technically, I am going to be a grad student because my character has finished all of their classes for the degree, which was Master of Elements. So I haven't really looked into that. To be honest, I'm not sure that I want to get into another readathon because of how much I've been struggling finding enjoyable reads for me. And so I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing. But I will tell you that the book that I am reading right now is very promising. I would say I'm about 50% in, so that should be the first book that I talk to you about when, I was going to say when you see my next video, but that's a lie because I do have a clip previously that I have filmed for a book that I finished in February, I believe, that I have not yet chatted with you about. And so, in any case, everything will work out in the end. And so, I think that's pretty much all I'm going to share with you today. So let me know down in the comments below what you've been reading. If you participated in March Mystery Madness, have you had a lot of success picking out enjoyable books for yourself? I would really love to know because I would love some of that energy. And if nothing else, and you'd just like to let me know that you were here, if you could leave me a magnifying glass emoji down in the comments below, it would be greatly appreciated and would really help me out. And that will do it for me today. So I hope you're all doing great. I hope you're all safe and healthy. And until next time, take care and smile always. Bye.